Hi, and welcome back to the Happiness Safari podcast. My name is Nadine. I'm your host. I'm a Bikram yoga travel teacher and happiness life coach. And the podcast is here to inspire you to live a happier and healthier life. Today on the podcast, I speak to Jessy. Jessy's vision is to accompany as many people as possible into their glow. Through her nomadic life and numerous journeys to distant countries, she has always had the opportunity to go on an inner journey and to get to know herself better. This has taught her that it is worthwhile to follow one's truth with courage decisions. She combines yoga with personal development, with which she passes on the valuable tools of introspection and mental and physical gentleness. Her heartfelt themes are basic trust and self-love, which are the roots of her yoga classes, workshops, and retreats throughout Europe. She lives in Portugal with her husband and her four-legged friends. We speak about her inner journey and her outer journey and how whatever happens in your life will teach you something. From today's episode, you will learn how to be brave enough to decide for yourself, how to trust yourself, how to know that you're good enough, how to let go of what people think of you, how to hear your inner voice, and how not to judge yourself. We also do a short meditation around minute 35, and maybe you find a quiet space for that. Otherwise, you can do it later if you're driving or cycling. And anyways, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing right now, I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Happiness Safari podcast. Today I'm speaking to lovely Jessy, living in Portugal at the moment. And I'm so happy to have you. How happy are you today?
Thank you, Nadine. And thank you for inviting me. And of course, it makes me happy to speak to you today and to get to know you and to get to share a little bit about me. That makes me really happy. And in general, how happy am I at the moment? I don't want to put it on a scale really, but happiness is really something I would like as like a general kind of wave inside of me, a general base. Yes. Yeah. And then everything else can happen around it. But I think now in my life, at this point of my life, I created this general base of happiness, trust, and gratitude.
Wow.
I'm feeling really happy today.
That makes me really happy too. And I guess we will definitely get into that, what you did to get there and also what you do to continue having this kind of base of happiness, which I find beautiful. But maybe, we start with your happiness journey and where it started and when it started. Was there a point in your life where you could say that that's when it all began?
When you say journey, it's really on point because I think it still is a journey because things in our life change. And if I think of certain points in my life, then it was always when I jumped. In German, we would say we jump into the cold water. So every time I was brave enough to make a decision for myself, something clicked, something shifted, something happened. And so my personal journey of happiness was always combined with traveling, with going out there and seeing some different perspectives of life, which made me be able to find different perspectives of myself. So every journey I did outside in the world was always a journey within. And I think this is where my roots of finding my truth, finding my happiness are really where they really are. And my first trip started right after school, very classic with 18 years. I did a work and travel to Australia. which so many people did in my generation, and which is a really great thing. Back then I was planning to be away for 3 months and then come back, and I already had a place for studying something and a boyfriend that was working in finances, and everything was set. But I didn't come back after 3 months, and I quit the relationship. I didn't take that study spot, and I stayed away for a whole year instead, which my parents were freaking out about. But it was really the first time that I felt this deep inner knowing and this deep inner, I call it my inner wisdom, and we all have it. It's not something special that I have, but we all have it. And following that intuition or inner wisdom can lead to true and to deep happiness. So that's what I did the first time when I was 18. And I'm just exploring that and keep on doing that and finding my way always back to that inner wisdom. But that was definitely a milestone, that first trip. And then there were many other milestones. So let me know which one you want me to talk about.
No, I want to dive deeper into that one, because I think you began your journey like earlier than I did, because it's interesting, because I went to Australia as well. And I went there for 6 months, and I felt the most kind of freedom and happiness I ever felt, like when I was road tripping and looking out of the window. And I always remember this moment and thinking, oh my God, like this was, if anybody like in a meditation or, says like, think about like freedom, then I always think about that time. And I was the happiest in my life when I was working on a farm, like a melon farm, and I was picking watermelons and honey melons, and it was probably the most intense and hard work I've done in my life, that I was so incredibly happy. And I remember I was sitting on that field and I was crying, and I didn't want to go home. And I left my boyfriend actually before I went to Australia. But I also, like you, had a place to study. I didn't have an apartment, but I had a place to study something like business administration, but I didn't even want to study, really. But I came back. Like, I didn't have the bravery, I guess, to really follow my inner wisdom back then, and not to come back. I was still too caught up in society and what people would expect from me. And I came back. So I'm wondering, what was, your challenge, and how did you overcome that struggle when you thought, okay, I should go back, but then you had to change your flight, convince your parents, maybe break up with your boyfriend, all these things, and you've done it. So please share, like, how did you overcome that?
Thank you for asking, because it makes me really reflect deeply on that time back then. So, and I think it really goes back to when my parents split up when I was, I think, around 12 or something. And now I know that time back then gave me so much strength. I had so much anger, and I was like a really angry teenager. But that anger made me so strong and made me like fight for my rights and, stand tall for what I need, for my needs. And I think that's one of the greatest things. And I'm actually now really grateful for my parents separating and all that whole story in my past, because it really gave me some special qualities that I think I wouldn't have now if everything just went smooth, and which no life really does.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about that moment in the car road tripping and your face in the wind and that freedom, that feeling of freedom, I got goosebumps, because I had the same feeling for the first time in my life. I felt completely free. I felt completely me, myself. I was there on my own. I could decide today what I wanted to do, what I wanted to eat. So I had that situation on one side, but on the other side, I had this feeling of freedom and happiness and of feeling myself. And that was so, so strong that it really pulled me there. Like it was so strong that I just couldn't leave. Leaving wasn't an option. And I think the combination of that strong sense of freedom and being finally myself and the strength that my past experience had given me, that together made me be able to stay and to find a way to finance it and organize everything.
Wow, that's so cool. And it's really, truly inspiring. I thought when you said that the divorce of your parents basically made you strong, then I thought of something I recently read, and it's actually also such a nice metaphor because you have a tree behind you. And it was an experience made in Arizona, and they planted a really big tree in a dome, and they tested how the tree would survive without its natural environment. And so there was no wind and no insects and nothing which could basically attack the life of the tree. And what happened when the tree got really tall, it just fell because the roots weren't strong enough because there was no wind. So it couldn't develop like really strong roots to hold the tree. And I thought, oh my God, this is so like beautiful if you think of life and of us as humans, because we are sometimes so scared of the struggles and of the bad things happening to us. And we think, oh, why is this happening? And, you know, like, I don't want to be in this situation. But all it does, it makes us stronger. So as you said, actually now you're grateful because, yeah, you get so much strength out of it. And I think we are getting all of our strength. We're like building our roots, our foundation with all the storms around us. And just with that, we can actually grow and become stronger. And without the wind, we probably wouldn't even survive. We'd just be weak. So, yeah.
Such a lovely story. Actually, this tree has quite, it looks like it's a root itself. If I remove my little Lakshmi. Yeah, thank you for sharing that nice metaphor. I like it. It's really true, I think. I also believe in being strong and happy and living in abundance without suffering. I also believe in that. I don't think we have to suffer and go through hard times to grow and to be happier. I think they're both can be possible.
Yeah, definitely. So so how did your journey continue? So you stayed in Australia and then you came back, but yeah, what happened after that? What was another moment maybe you think is really important or changing you would like to share?
So if I think of really milestones in my life, I would kind of go forward real fast now. So I started studying tourism in Munich. I had a wonderful student life. And through my studies of tourism, I had really good opportunities to travel while I was studying. So I could do semesters abroad. I could do 6 months, a semester off, and traveled from Panama to Mexico and all the way down again by myself. So that was definitely a milestone because that was the time when I also took my very first yoga class in Nicaragua back then, which was a milestone in my life, definitely. And I also met my husband through during that study times, and then traveled with him when he did his internship in Mexico. We went back together to Central America. And that was a milestone definitely for us. And after my studies and the life that I dreamed of, like studying and traveling and being rooted in Germany, I started to go into a normal job. So I started working in events. I was creating all kinds of like after show parties, film festivals, outdoor festivals, all these kind of things. And a little bit like you told me before, about your life, like working crazy hours and doing everything that makes you feel worthy in society. So I did it all for 5 years. And then we went with our camper van on a trip to Italy, like a short trip, only 3 days or so. And I had a little breakdown. So I was crying, lying in the arms of my husband. And I was like, this can't be it. Like, we have this beautiful flat in Munich. Yes, we have the good jobs. Yes, we have the friends. Yes, everything seems fine. But I feel like I'm stealing from myself. I'm stealing from my freedom. I'm stealing from my happiness. And it can't be just that. It can't be that we get married now and have a child and I go part-time. And that's not for me. Like, I don't judge that path, but it's not for me. So I was missing something. And we decided on those 3 days that we will either work out a way to get a sabbatical for 1 year, or we would just quit and sell everything and ship our van to South America and drive a year through South America. So we did a little plan, like how much money we would have to save and how long it would take us. And after that little calculation, which is mainly my husband's part, but it's really good to have that, we had a date. So we had a date. I think it was March 2018, when we would have that amount we were calculating. So we booked our flights for March 2018 and we did it. Nice. So we shipped our van and we traveled for 1 year through South America without having to work, which was really a privilege. And that was definitely a big milestone in my life, spending so much time together with this wonderful human, and growing together, not only growing together, but also growing together. Finding more and more back to our true natures, because he was also in a very stressful, busy job, finding back to ourselves. And I also did my first yoga teacher training in Peru. Nice. I have a really, really deep and strong connection to Peru, because after those 3 weeks, so many things in my life changed. All my life really changed, apart from being my partner. We adopted a dog from the streets in Peru and brought him back home. He's here now with us. He proposed to me. My yoga journey really started, like a journey as a teacher started. And I had a feeling of that kind of adult life, not being a student anymore, but having an adult life, how it could taste for me. Yeah. How it could be when I'm not in that web of so-called security with a job and but how this life could also be like and taste like. So that was definitely a big milestone for me, that trip to South America.
Wow. Oh, that is so cool and so lovely to hear. And I understand the connection to Central and South America, because now I am in Peru and I did my yoga teacher training in Mexico. So this is definitely a part of the world where you can feel very kind of connected and also finding yourself, if you would say that in that sense. But if we go back, like, what would you say was your biggest challenge before you made the decision or you made the plan to leave? Like, what was your kind of inner struggle? I mean, were there like doubts, and you said you had this knowing that life wasn't, you had everything in your life, but it wasn't really what made you happy. But was there also things like holding you back or thinking that it's crazy to to leave and to actually follow your dreams?
Yes, of course. I mean, there are always things that hold you back, and mainly it's the things in your own head. It's not even so much what other people tell you. Like, people would tell you, you cannot quit that job. It's such a good job, or you cannot leave this apartment. You will never get an apartment like that anymore. Actually, we moved out of Munich when we came back, and we were living in the most amazing apartment right by the lake, my favorite lake in Germany. So
Which one?
it's called Staffelsee. It's
Okay.
near
Yeah.
Murnau, and it's 1 hour south of Munich, and it's just beautiful nature,
Yeah.
untouched and amazing. So what was holding me back was only... So back then I was still in a state of needing so much confirmation from the outside world that I'm okay and that I'm good enough and that I'm doing good. Because I didn't know so many tools about personal development and this inner like trusting myself, and the knowing that I'm not only good enough but special and amazing and wonderful, like everybody is.
Like we all are, yeah.
Like we all are, yes. So even when we came back after that year, it was the same struggle, that it was so hard for me I always had the feeling that I have to defend myself for my decisions and that I have to explain myself. So that was really one thing that held me back a little bit, being judged by others and making the judgment of others being important to me. So now this is one of the best teachings I got when I came back and I had quit the job and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was working in a cafe at first, and many people were telling me like, you studied and now you're working in a cafe. Like, what are you going to do? And with yoga, you can't earn money anyways. So I was confronted with those prejudices really right into my face. And that time was a great teacher for me to learn to let go of whatever I'm being judged for, of letting go of what people think of me. That really helped me that time, although it was a little bit tough for me to continue to stand in my power and to trust into my path and just to follow what I knew inside of me was right. That really helped me. So now I can make choices like that a lot easier. But that was really my personal struggle for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think many people can relate to that struggle as well, because I guess we all know that, and we have, people on the outside maybe criticizing us for our decisions and our choices or lifestyle, and then we have our inner critic as well. But I think it's also interesting what you said, because you heard of the expression like, your thoughts are not your thoughts. So sometimes people put, thoughts in your mind like, you can never earn money as a yoga teacher. I mean, that is just a belief. But that's obviously not true, because they are like super rich and successful yoga teachers. But then you start believing what other people say, and then you believe that is what you think, actually. And to kind of separate yourself from that. And as you say, like, stay strong and in your power. So what helps you really to do that, to ground yourself even more and trust yourself more and let go, you said, of what other people would say?
The process of being in it, actually being in that situation, and not being afraid and not running away and looking. I had moments when I was looking up in the internet, like jobs in the event scene in Munich again. And I sat there again and I was like, no, I'm not going back there. I'm not doing it. I'm not stealing again from myself. That's how I always call it. Stealing from myself, stealing from my soul, my purpose, my happiness. So I think being in the process and being with it, not necessarily being okay with it, but just being with it and sitting there and sit with it and reflecting on it, like really, like radically, honestly reflecting with myself on that subject. Like, why is it so important to me what other people think? Where does this come from? Where is this rooted? And doing that inner work was really liberating me from myself, if that makes sense. It was really liberating me from making that so important.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. So, and but it's true. Like sometimes we have to go, I mean, through the process, and then we can understand why, and like later on. But I think that's also very good kind of mindset, or like to, not judge the past, or not think of it as like bad times, or that something bad happened to you. Also same with the divorce of your parents, but actually thinking, how did it help me, and how did I develop strength, and what did I learn from it, and why was it there, and why did it happen?
How can this help me right now? How can this show me something right now? And always trusting in whatever happens in our lives will teach us something, is happening for us and not against us. So that's really, really important, I think, for happiness.
Yeah. So what was your biggest learning in your life, basically?
The biggest learning in my life. Wow. The biggest learning in my life, actually. So to answer that question, I want to tell you something, because it just fits with what we were talking about before. So I told you and all the listeners that I did my first teacher training in Peru, which really transformed many, many things in my life. And now in January, I got invited to go back to the same place, teaching a 300-hour yoga teacher training in that exact yoga retreat center with my teachers from back then. So I'll be teaching on their sides. So that is really a big thing for me, and a great opportunity. And I'm incredibly grateful to go back to Peru and to be able to step into that new version of me and to experience that version and see how it goes. And to answer your question, what is my biggest learning, is that when we trust ourselves, and when we trust this inner knowing, this inner wisdom, and we are brave enough to follow it, then things will fall together. Things will all come together, and things will work out. And you will get that deeply rooted sense of happiness. And I think that's the biggest learning, to be brave enough to follow my inner voice. And also, of course, what is necessary for that is to create a life, creating a space for myself where I'm able to hear that voice. Because you have to do something to be able to hear these voices, or to feel the feelings. So creating a space for myself to be able to listen to that, and then to be brave enough to follow it.
Wow. Yeah. That's super beautiful, and very, very true. And also, I think very challenging. So when people are listening, you probably think, okay, listening to myself and is one thing, but how do I even do that? And then also having the bravery to follow. But going back to the first thing you said, so what do you do actually to create that space for yourself? Right.
I think we have to put ourselves in the first place, because otherwise we will never think we are worthy enough to be that brave for ourselves and to do those steps and to do those decisions, make decisions and do the changes in our life. If we don't love ourselves and put ourselves in the very first place in our lives, then we will never do those steps. Or we will maybe do tiny little steps, but then not be sure. So practicing self-care, practicing self-love, connecting to ourselves. And I know we hear that so often these days, but it can really be to tell a friend, look, I don't feel like going out today. I'll stay at home. And you stay at home. Or I gave this example yesterday in my stories, that I decided not to have dinner with my husband, but instead go into the bathtub because my body just really needed to be warm in that moment. And then after, I can be that wife, that partner again that I want to be. And that's just little examples, but really, so personally for me, it's nature. Breathing fresh air is my number one, like being outside regularly. And I have a dog, so I'm really lucky that he will always make sure I'm outside enough. And of course, my yoga practice and my meditation practice has been my anchor for the last 10 years. So without that, like rolling out my mat, also while I'm traveling, wherever I am on parking lots and, the most, not so beautiful places, rolling out my mat and moving with my body, connecting to my body, breathing, and then being still for a few moments. It's just my anchor. And it can be so, my own practice is so simple. I don't do any fancy figures and postures. It's really simple. I'm Vata dosha, so I need a lot of grounding. So it doesn't have to be fancy stuff. It just needs to be regularly, and it needs to be integrated in our everyday life, no matter what. And then also not to judge ourselves if we skip our own practice. I also find very important, and it's also an act of self-love. Okay, it just didn't happen today. I'm not going to judge myself. It's fine, but I'll go again tomorrow. And I could go on with other like Ayurveda rituals I do. And I could go on with nutrition and my oil and all these kind of things. But that's really on top. I would say find one thing that grounds you, one thing that connects you. And it could be that you put your hand on your heart when you wake up in the morning and you just take 3 deep breaths and say something nice to yourself. It could be just that.
Should we do this together, actually?
I would love to, yes.
Yeah, and everybody who's listening, maybe I hope if you're not driving a car right now and you're sitting somewhere comfortably, then you can do it with us, and otherwise go back to the replay and do it later. Okay, would you like to guide us?
Oh, yes, I would love to.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay, perfect. So if it feels comfortable for you, Nadine, and for everybody listening, you can gently close your eyes or find a soft gaze. And then place your left hand on your heart and really spread your fingers wide. Allow your face to relax. And then let's take a deep inhale through the nose and into your heart space. Exhale through the nose again. Continue your deep breaths and just feel how your heart is moving up and down, knowing that you are precious, that you are loved and safe, and that the world needs you in your truest self. And then take a last deep inhale into your heart, and maybe a soft smile arises on your face. Exhale, release the hand and gently open your eyes.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I think you said actually two very important things there. And one is, yes, practicing self-love and taking the time. And as you said, like, maybe taking a bath instead of having dinner, or maybe canceling dinner to go to bed early or whatever it is. And I think that is a decision like you have to make. And I actually spoke about that yesterday in my advent calendar video, but that's now a little while ago. But it's like happened to me actually here in Peru that I like went surfing yesterday. And it's so funny because I love surfing. And I know for me, that's like when I'm really in the moment, like, you can just look at the waves and then you have the moment where you have to paddle really hard and stand up and catch that wave and you can't think of anything else. And I know like how much I love it and how much it makes me happy and how much, I can practice to be in the moment. And I knew also that Peru was like such a great city or country to go surfing. So I thought, okay, when I'm here for 2 months, I will do it. And I was at some places along the coast, but I never went surfing. And I was like super busy. And I mean, I practiced obviously like yoga, like regularly, but I get very, very busy like the last weeks actually with like, working and doing like the podcast and doing like so many other things that I really kind of forgot to take the time for myself as well. And really having this priority to do what makes me happy. And I really realized that yesterday because I thought, oh my God, like this just made me like so happy and it gave me so much energy. I mean, when they asked me like, do you want to rent a board and surf? Because I just walked by a place, then I was like, first my thought were like, no, I can't do it. Like I have so much like to do when I come back. And then I did it anyways. And I went surfing for 2 hours. And after that, I had like so much energy. I could have sit here like all night and I mean, edit podcasts or do other things. And now I'm also in that like positive place where I can, be there for my partner, for my family, where, I can, be a better version of myself for my clients, where I can have probably a better interview with you because I'm so happy and grounded within myself because I took that time. So I think what you said, like it's really a decision to practice the self-love and to take the time for yourself. And then the other things you shared, like the yoga and meditation or breath work, or there are so many other things like nutrition is super important as well. But that's kind of tools which you can choose. But I think like one is to know that there are so many tools out there, and that's why we are talking as well. And then one is really to make that decision to practice self-love in the first place and prioritize yourself in the first place and live up to that. Like make that decision once and then don't compromise on that. Because I really think when you're in that place, then you can actually spread so much more happiness and be a better version of yourself also in like relationship to everybody else. So,
it's super important to understand that self-love or putting yourself in the first priority always is not egoistic, is not selfish at all because of what you just said.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well when you said it. I was like, it sounds selfish, but it really isn't, because actually I think many people, and I have friends who are that way as well, are trying to, because I think in the deep core, if you agree, is like what we all want is to be loved. And I think sometimes like we try to like make other people happy, like to do things for other people. Like let's say it would have made your parents happy if you would have come back from Australia earlier. Maybe it would have made your parents also happy if you would have, went and studied, or it would have made maybe your friends happy if you would have gotten back into your like event job, or you would have stayed in Munich and not travel. But you would have compromised your own happiness. And then you think, okay, that's you're like giving and not selfish, but really you would have probably be in a very sad like point in your life, at some point, because you have this inner calling and this inner wisdom and intuition that you're like want to live a different life. And I think when you actually forget about that and you're trying to live up to other people's expectations all the time, then you're becoming miserable. And then you're not a good friend and not a good partner and not a good daughter or not a good mother, or, whatever it is. Like then you really struggle to fill in that role and to really be there for others. And I mean, when you prioritize yourself first, then you are like really living your fullest potential. And then you can really be there for others and help them as well. And yeah, they will enjoy you being around so much more.
Yes, absolutely. And I would like to add one thing to that, because making decisions for ourselves and putting ourselves in the first place, prioritizing ourselves, also means, or especially means for me, to make choices that are in alignment with me. So I could never make a choice that would make a loved one of mine suffer, or that would make somebody, that would put somebody that I love in a really, really bad situation. That wouldn't be in alignment with me. So there will always be, and that's kind of what saves or secures our situations, that if we make decisions that are in true alignment with ourselves, we can never really harm, because our truest nature doesn't want to harm anybody. So, and that's where the balance comes in, I think, in deciding things that are in alignment with our truest nature.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
that's where the borderline is between being selfish and practicing self-love.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with you on that. Oh my God. Jessy, it's so nice to talk to you, but I have to ask you 3 questions I'm asking every interview guest at the end. And the first one is, what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness to me means an inner freedom. And with freedom, I don't mean living in Portugal or traveling in my van or breathing fresh air. Inner freedom is freeing myself at the inside from my own thoughts about myself, freeing myself from what other people think about me, what other people or the world expects from me, freeing myself from core beliefs and taking off layer by layer. That is inner freedom. And to be brave enough to follow our inner wisdom. And that's what makes me personally really, really happy in life.
Nice. I like that. And you shared already many things, but maybe there's something else. What do you do to be happy?
In order to be happy, I need to create a space in my life where I can check in with myself. And I need to relax so that I can be brave enough to follow that and to take action.
And the last one is always a difficult one. Let's see. What was the happiest moment in your life?
The happiest moment in my life. There is always this one situation, the one when you were describing before, when you were sitting in the car and the fresh air and the sense of freedom. And that's the moment that you choose whenever you are asked in a meditation, find a place that you that symbolizes freedom for you. I have this one place in Colombia where it was a tiny little town, but we stayed there forever, a really long time, and it had a beautiful beach. And my brother was visiting at the time with his girlfriend, so it was my husband, my dog that I had recently adopted from the street, with my brother and his girlfriend, and we were just walking out of the house in our swimsuits, barefoot, walking along the beach, and the sun was setting. And there was nothing, like not a special thing happening in that moment, but I just felt a deep, deep sense of happiness and of like a peacefulness within. And that's my moment where I think back when I want to call in a sense of happiness or peace, peacefulness. That's my moment. It was called Rincón del Mar. That's based in that place in Colombia, Rincón del Mar, a very tiny town.
Wow. Yes. I will put that in the show notes if anybody wants to go there. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to Colombia actually, but it was super hard with COVID at the moment to travel. Like overland is not possible, and then flights are super expensive. So I have to postpone that, but that's okay.
It will wait for you.
Yeah, I know. Oh God. Okay. I would also like to ask you, is there any book which really inspired you would like to recommend?
So one book that brought me back to the divine was Conversations with God from Neale Donald Walsh. And it also helped me to let go of so many thoughts I had about the word God and about church and about religion. And the book is not about religion or the church. It talks about the church, but in a very critical way, actually. So that was very heartwarming for me to read that and to connect with that source, with that intelligence again.
Yeah, I love that one as well. And I will put it in the show notes. Have you read the first one or the first three? I actually said there are even 5 or 7. There are even more than I thought. How many have you read?
I read the first and the second one.
Okay.
The second one, although, is pretty tough. It's a lot about politics and how our world is functioning and could be functioning. So it's quite challenging to read that.
And then the third one is about the universe and how we are obviously not the only species and how we underdeveloped we actually are in comparison. But then, I mean, he says they are the species who are living already kind of fully in peace and love, and that so eventually that will, give us hope to get there as well. But yeah, I mean, the first one also very life-changing for me. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, Jessy, it was so nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for all your light and your inspiration, and also people are watching or just listening. I mean, you're just also kind of sensing this sense of calmness, and this short meditation was beautiful. And I will put everything in the show notes so people can find you. And thank you so much for everything you are.
Yes, thank you, Nadine. I would like to thank you for making me again reflect on some things of my life, because every time I reflect on something again, it's a little bit of a new perspective. So I would really like to thank you for that and for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. And hopefully somebody finds something in this conversation that resonates with them and that inspires them to shine their light.
For sure. I'm 100% sure of that. Okay, so keep shining, keep being happy. All the best to you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will put all the links in the show notes for you if you want to get in touch with Jessy, if you are in Portugal, if you want to join some of her yoga classes or retreats. And I will also put the links to the beautiful Staffelsee, the lake in Germany, and also Rincon del Mar in Colombia. If you are there and you are a traveler or a digital nomad, or you're just going on a vacation somewhere, you can check these places out. I hope you took a lot away for yourself from this interview. You feel empowered and encouraged to listen to your wisdom and to trust yourself a little bit more and follow your dreams. Also, it will make me so happy if you leave me a review, if you subscribe, if you sign up, if you share the podcast. Anything would help me so much. And yeah, it's time for the quote of today. It's from the same book, The Things You Can Only See When You Slow Down. If you've been unable to change a bad situation, even after many attempts, you should change how you look at the situation. Nothing is intrinsically good or bad. Good or bad is always relative. Compare your situation with someone that is worse. Now yours does not seem so bad after all. And yeah, that was the quote for today. I hope you get some inspiration and you're feeling a bit better, happier after this episode. And I wish you a beautiful day. I see you next week. Love and namaste.